fuck, I was explaining all this shit for like 5 minutes and I didn't have the mic on. You know what it is? I should have plugged out the dongle. I had the dongle for this headset mic plugged in, so everything I was saying was not being recorded. Oh, basically, I was saying I had to make a red AI mask in Sony Vegas in order to aid the AI from Pixverse to do the swapping, the character swapping. I can't do the character. It sometimes is a limit to the AI's intelligence. So there's instances when they can't identify one character from another, and that instance where Henry Cavill is choking Zod, they could not ID Henry Cavill as Zod, so it just like made them one person. So basically, when I swap in, say David Corny Sweat, I try to swap in David Corny Sweat, which is the James Gunn Superman, into that spot, into that sequence, to be choked by Zod, by Henry Cavill. It made them both David Corny Sweat. They couldn't tell who to put in. I don't know why. They just fucked. So basically, I had to use Sony Vegas to use a red mask and a color correction to highlight who I want to swap out. And basically, I came up with this when I was doing another video for Return of the Jedi, where I'm trying to highlight Luke, and Luke's in the Endor forest blocking lasers, but he's wearing a green camo and he's in a green forest, so the AI couldn't ID Luke away from the forest, so I didn't know where I want a character to swap out. So I had to physically go into Sony Vegas, highlight Luke in bright red, and zoom in on him too. I had to pan in and zoom in on him, so there's no mistake where the character is I want to swap in. Then take that video in 1080p and put it in Pixverse, and then Pixverse can swap me in to replace Luke. And that's the genesis of that solution. It's just extra steps. And sometimes AI makes you lazy, so you want AI to do everything, but then when AI fails, then you have to use Sony Vegas to step in and do the rest of the work. Basically, do the job that you want AI to do for you. So I don't think AI is going to take people's jobs away because there's limitations to AI. Okay, still human intelligence has to replace it. So using that solution, I use that to fix this video here. This is a video I made earlier, a couple of months earlier, called "Crisis on Infinite DC Universes." Crisis on Infinite DC Cinematic Universes, right? So basically, it's David Corny Sweat Superman versus David James Gunn Superman. So Henry Cavill versus David Corny Sweat. Zack Snyder's versus James Gunn's. So basically, I couldn't fix that shot because AI failed me basically, and I was relying too much on AI. So now I'm like, well, if I come back to this, I can fix this using my intervention technique I used for Return of the Jedi. I also use that intervention technique for a Revenge of the Sith clip where Anakin's chopping off Count Dooku's head for a far shot because he's so dark, right? The background is dark, and Anakin's in a dark outfit, so it can't ID Anakin for me to swap myself into Anakin's place. So I had to highlight Anakin in red. In that far shot where he's chopping off Dooku's head, you see him go woof, and then he puts his lightsabers and turns his lightsabers off. That sequence, I had to highlight Anakin completely in red, so the computer could ID him. So then it could swap me in, no problem, to replace Anakin. And that is inside baseball on motherfucking video editing. This is quantum video editing, okay? This video editing using AI. This is like Fighters Corner 2.0. Anyway, Crisis Infinite Earths, DC Cinematic. Cavill, Corny Sweat, breakneck sequence. Yep, that's a render it like this because when you render it as one unit, then I can just take it and move it anywhere. I don't need to fuck around with it, and it didn't come out that great. Well, I mean, I don't know which is worse because what it was is I did have a sequence where I highlighted what's the name, and it did actually work, right? And I highlighted Henry Cavill, so I was able to plug Henry Cavill in. But then when I plugged Henry Cavill in the choke sequence, then it made David Corner Sweat look kind of like fucking Christian Slater. And like, why does he look like Christian Slater all of a second? Why can't he just look like David Corner Sweat like he did before? And even then, see, this is how he looked there in the first video. So he barely looked like David Corny Sweat there. Now he looks like fucking Christian Slater. He looks nothing like David Corny Sweat at all. Like, what the fuck happened? Why does the AI keep making these wild departures from what it's supposed to be rendered? Okay, just because there's a video of a character and the character is moving, it makes all these like extrapolations and interpretations of the face and completely changes the face. Even when you try to plug your own face into something, right? It IDs you, but then it makes all these fucking deviations of your own face, so it doesn't look like you anymore. Like who are you even plugging into the video now? It's supposed to look like me. Just take a digital zeros and ones copy of my face and plug it in. Don't make any interpretations. And the problem is why is all these deviations? Because they're parsing it. They're taking the person's face, they're parsing it into human language, and then parsing it back into digital again. And that's where all the deviations come from. Because the parsing it into human language is where all the mistakes come out. So they should not parse it in human language. Just put it in zeros and ones. This is digitally reproduce the fucking face. And that's where the issue is with Pixverse. They've gotten a little better at it. Now it's like Pixverse update. The update now kind of makes you still look like yourself. And then when they make extrapolations, it does look wildly different from you. But still, it's just like this. It does make those same mistakes. Because it's parsing you into human language and then parsing you back into digital representation. And there's a whole lot of loss in translation in that process, which is not even fucking necessary. That's the problem. Here's the thing: is the only reason the AI needs you to parse human language into digital is when you put in human language. Say, I want a character to look like this, and that, and then they parse into digital. They take these unnecessary steps where they take a digital picture. You give them the fucking digital picture. Just taking the zeros, ones, and that's it. No, the computer digitally or whatever internally, right, parses that digital picture into human language and then parses it back. So it's a human description of it. So it's a vague description. So then you end up with a vague picture, which is why this guy barely looks like fucking David Corny Sweat, James Gunn Superman, which is making my job a whole lot harder. And it's like, man, at some point you have to give up. Like, you know what? It's a stunt man. Fuck it. Clearly it's a stunt man, and don't even try to even make it look like the fucking character because they're making it difficult. Because this shit, and it's like the fact that this is like one frame off. I think, yeah, I can see why it's one frame off because I put the video one frame further back than it's supposed to be. See this right here? This Henry Cavill run? It's supposed to be back here. It's supposed to be back here. See what that red, right here actually, where his red mask is over David Corny Sweat? Because they put James Corny Sweat in there, he's not supposed to be there, right? It's actually supposed to be Henry Cavill. So you move it here. So now everything lines up. So you put it here now. All these masks I just finished changing, I actually didn't have to change. Well, I was changing, but I was changing when they're not lined up correctly. So I'm like changing a mask to line up with a frame, but it's lining up with the wrong frame because the whole thing, the starting sequence is off by, I don't know, a couple milliseconds. Which, I don't know. It gets to be a hobby, but then it's a long fine line between a hobby and a chore. And it's starting to get to the point where it's a fucking chore. This is why, George Lucas said, like films aren't finished, they're abandoned. So that's why he made the special editions, because like there's stuff he wanted to put in the first Star Wars movies, but he wasn't able to put it into it because of time and budget. So that's why he went back and said, all right, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. And people were like, what the fuck do you change all that? I told you didn't actually do that. Well, he wanted to change it because he wasn't happy with what he finished, how the project finished. Like the same with this. This is, I don't know, 3 months ago, or 2 months ago, I think I finished this, right? In January. So 3 months ago. So I will never finish how this, I was never satisfied with how this turned out. So now I'm going back to fix it. This is the special edition. Ain't over till it's over. It's not a big deal to line up. But it is a lot of work. But everything in Sony Vegas is a lot of work. That's why it's a fucking hobby. And that's why I stopped making videos. Everybody's asking me why I stopped making videos. Because it's too much fucking work. You do all this work for video that basically only makes maybe 120 views. It's not worth it. It's more worth it to me to work on making video games rather than that could possibly make profit perpetually rather than a dumb video that maybe 100 people are going to see. Like, what am I doing this for? For myself, basically? I don't know. I guess. It's actually not for any profit or not for like recognition because you're doing all this work and it basically falls under the cracks. And because I curse constantly and use the F word, excessively, both F words, the algorithm try to bury you. I know it's even people I follow, like even Kind of Funny Games, like Greg Miller from IGN, they Kind of Funny Games, they bury Greg Miller in the fucking algorithms because they curse all the time. If I don't search out Kind of Funny, you don't find it. It's never in my feed. I would automatically start to forget that Kind of Funny Games even exists because they bury them in algorithms. They bury their asses. The only reason they make money is because of the donations from their followers. If not, they would get nothing because even though they have 250,000 followers and they've been out for like almost 8 years and they still are stuck at 250,000 followers. Meanwhile, no name people, no name YouTubers have like a million followers and they're like no name. Like how does Young Ye have a million followers and he's a dumbass Chinese dickhead